let me get this.
This podcast is sponsored by Odyssey B-Row, the special Odyssey B-Row that gets you nothing but good memories because you ain't drunk. So drink some Odyssey B-Row today. That's just Tom Holland dropping in to talk about his new Odyssey B-Row stuff. We are here to talk about the Odyssey, though. You're as big of a Christopher Nolan fan as I am, Griffin, so you'd be the perfect person to get on the show. You've got an IMAX cap on. You've got a Dune T-shirt on. You're loving it. We also managed to get the guy the Hamilton Odyssey watch today as well. They were going on sale.
that was you, man. Yeah, that was all thanks to you. So I appreciate that.
So Griffin basically edited my entire watch video, the James Bond one. I think I've tricked him into loving watches, and then he saw the Odyssey one today and was like, "Will you get this for me?" And I've got him it. We managed to secure one. I'm going to send him out, and I'm actually wearing my Hamilton from Interstellar. So it's a bit of a Nolan watch day, but no one cares about that other than us. What they do care about is the Odyssey. So I saw your initial reaction, and we kind of talked about it privately, where you were saying you enjoyed it, but you weren't that high on it, and there were certain problems that you had with it, and I did feel the same way. I've been asked a couple of times what I would score it, and I would say 8 out of 10 off a first watch. I do feel like it'll go higher. Yeah. You've seen it a couple of times now. How do you feel after a couple of watches?
Yeah, I've seen it twice now, and as I kind of assumed it would, it played much better on the rewatch. I not that it played bad the first time watching. I think it was. I mean, the film, or sorry, the poem kind of like throws you into the midst of everything that's going on. It's the typical in medias res kind of starting point. Nolan does that in his movies, but for whatever reason, the way that this film started the first time I saw it, and the way it was kind of moving through the narrative and catching us up with everything that was going on, was a bit jarring. And I also think that it was the first time where I felt the technical constraints of the project. Like, it's been reported that he could not go over 3 hours. There were technical, like IMAX could not be technically projected for over 3 hours. So there were technical limitations that necessitated the runtime that we got. And the first time watching, I thought, there are moments, like Nolan as a filmmaker, I think is incredibly skilled at making us feel something and lingering with moments in order to get every bit of emotion out of a scene and out of his actors as possible. And there were a couple of moments, specifically when they went to Hades and he was conversing with Elliot Page's character and then Agamemnon and stuff like that, where it felt like it was going through stuff in a bit like too rapidly, and I'm like, this is a really profound moment of revelation that I wish we had been able to linger with a bit more. And there were other instances of that throughout the film where I thought like the movie had to keep moving because they literally could not go longer. And so I was like, if this had an additional 10 to 15 minutes to it, I think we'd be looking at a much, much better film. And so, the pacing was definitely something that I think affected me the first go around. Second go around, absolutely did not feel that way at all. A lot of those issues of just like, lingering emotional, they hit me harder. The opening stuff and getting situated, like with a lot of his films, that start in a similar way. I was just kind of like ready for it. I think it functioned a bit more effectively for me. I don't know. It's a lot of the criticisms that I had, I if someone made those criticisms, I would probably still be like, yeah, I get what you're saying. But I think for me, they softened the next go around,
Yeah, one of the big editing issues I noticed was around the Cersei scene when Odysseus shows up and they kind of just sit down and chat through stuff, and it kind of goes quite quickly. And obviously his men have been turned into pigs, but there's not necessarily like the realization and that dawning on him to the point that it's actually really horrifying, and it's like, oh crap, I've got to get out of here. They just kind of sit there and chat through things. So definitely I do agree with the editing with that. A lot of Nolan films do just drop you in at the deep end, and Inception is like the perfect example of that. And I know it's kind of based around a dream where you don't necessarily know what's going on from the off. You just kind of find yourself in it. But I do find that with a lot of Nolan stuff like Oppenheimer, Interstellar, they sort of introduce you to the characters and the concepts, but it's a very steep learning curve at first, especially if you don't know the characters. Luckily, I have been back through the Odyssey, and I do I am aware of this stuff, but I can see from a general audience member's perspective how it is laid out a bit strange. Like normally you would have Telemachus going and learning the story and then filling things through that way, which he does kind of do. But even with that, you still have before that the events like the Trojan horse and the him being on the island with Calypso, and it can be kind of you're trying to get your bearings. And when I was watching it the first time, I was very much sitting there thinking of my knowledge of the book and going, oh, when is this? Oh, right, okay, this is that bit, and this must be this bit. Yeah. So yeah, I do kind of get that, and I can see I have that issue with a lot of Nolan films. You know, Tenet was one of those ones where I didn't fully vibe with it the first watch, and then it was on multiple viewings that I was seeing how everything fit together, and it just worked so well. And yeah, it's just I did enjoy it, especially the last 45 minutes, I would say, where it all kind of crescendos up, ramps up this big thing, and it's just got so many big scenes back to back, and not even ones that are necessarily action scenes. Like even, you know, Odysseus sitting with the door in between him and Penelope, just talking about things, works really well. And I think there are some fantastic moments. And towards the end, everything just kind of fell into place. And a lot of the issues that I had with the film earlier just swept away when he pulls the bowstring or blung, and it all
it's
kicks
great.
off.
No, it's such a great moment, especially because of like what that moment means, like what it's set up to mean earlier in the film, and then with it being, we're talking spoilers, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, it's a spoiler review. It's on
the
thumbnail. I didn't warn anyone, but yeah, it's on the thumbnail. So if you're this far in,
to be fair, it's like a 3,000-year-old
listen about the watches.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but no, when he plucks the bow, the way that they established that at the beginning, with it being like, I only pluck my bow when I'm hunting, right? To give to like show like honor and respect for the people or for the creatures or whatever that I'm about to do. But he won't pluck it when he's like killing people. And so there's like a distinction in his mind, even though to the victim it is literally the exact same thing. And then at the end, when he plucks it before he kills all the suitors, it's like, no, now you have come to the realization that it's like you're kind of making peace with like all of these contradictions that you've carried within yourself. You're owning them, and you're just going to act and do the right thing. And you're gonna, like, you know, you'll pluck your bow, and you'll like give them the honor, whatever, of letting them know you're gonna kill them.
Yeah. I love when some of them are just start kneeling down, and it's just like, I'm just giving up. I'm just I'm taking a knee. Yeah, I'm bending the knee.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of wanted to just start at the beginning and sort of work through the film. It is non-chronological storytelling. I'm going to try and keep it as together as possible, but it's going to be jumping all over the place. So we begin with Travis Scott with the like a face, a war, a fleet, a man, a thought, a trick. It reminds me a lot of The Greatest Showman, where it's like very sort of heavily centered around the score and banging away in like a rhythmic thumping thing.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So he was also quite a big controversy around the movie, his casting. And I think it's a shame because it's difficult to go into this movie without thinking about the weeks and months of controversy surrounding it.
Yeah.
And I think the film has a lot of... I've seen a review describe it as a lot of stress tests up first, and you have Travis Scott, and then you've got Elliot Page, and there's just lots of things where it's like, if you can go with this, you're going to love the rest of the movie. Some people will have problems with it. We've seen that online. There's lots of people who haven't even seen the Odyssey telling you that the Odyssey is bad.
Right.
But I thought this was just a really gripping way to start things that kind of just immediately grabbed your attention because it's very rhythmic and just something that's simple. It's just words to a beat, and it just kind of grabs your attention. Yeah,
well, it's the film, you know, setting up that this is a retelling. This is like the way that they would tell the Odyssey, you know, back back in the day and everything like that. It was an oral poem that was recited and performed, and the interpretation was then passed down to the people through that orator, through the bard and everything like that. And in a sense, this is Nolan doing the same thing. And so I think that's a great way of establishing right off the bat of like, okay, this is going to be the Odyssey. And it's going to be told to you through the voice of Christopher Nolan, just as the bard is recounting the Odyssey to, you know, the suitors and everything like that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people say that the Odyssey, it's not being accurate to the Odyssey, but I don't
Yeah.
even think the Odyssey is accurate to the Odyssey because, you know, it was told for
No.
so many times and in
Yeah.
different ways. And then Homer kind of put tales together and crafted this narrative. And it's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
I would say it's more Nolan's interpretation of the Odyssey. And
Yeah.
I kind
Yeah.
of compare it a lot to theatre, where it's just like actors of the day kind of brought on to do like part and drop about. But obviously, it's bigger scale than that. But I did
Yeah.
find the beginning quite difficult to gel with when Tom Holland's kind of running around at Ithaca and sort of seeing the suitors and stuff, and he's training on the hill, and it's kind of, and you know, they're going through the training process of being like, look, if you make him look like you're weak, then it's going to draw people in and it's going to make them attack, and then you're going to be able to take that moment and flip it on them. And that does kind of speak to a lot of the combat moves within the film. For example, you know, Odysseus at the end appears like a beggar and gets everyone to kind of pick on him and underestimate him, and then they're caught off guard when he reveals who he is, and they're all kind of shocked more than anything instead of like fully assessing the situation.
Yeah.
So in hindsight, I did like those bits, but getting into them, I thought there was sort of a false start to the film almost, because we had the Sinan bit with the horse, the Trojan horse, and then kind of jumped about, and it was kind of like, well, which one are we following? And then we went to Calypso as well. And I know Christopher Nolan often has different plot threads kind of weaving together, but I did find that a bit difficult. It was more kind of, instead of being sucked into the film, I was existentially trying to process what was going on and how these stories work together.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think that's totally fair. I think I probably felt something to a similar extent. I mean, like you talk about Tenet, where Tenet being a film that took a little bit for you to get on board with when you were watching the first time. I think for me, one of the reasons that film hooked me so immediately is because of that, the intensity and the visceral nature of that opening.
Yeah.
A lot of his films have like a very similar, like a lot of his films that start in medias res, I think have a very similar kind of approach. Like you bring up Inception. Like, yes, Inception kind of just like drops you into the middle of what's going on, but they drop you into the middle of a heist. With Dunkirk, it drops you into the middle of a battle that is ongoing. You're following this guy and you have no idea what's happening. I mean, The Dark Knight Rises.
Even.
Yeah, right.
Prestige, you start off with like wondering, it's the whole murder thing where like he's drowning in the tank and he's rushing backstage, and you kind of jump back in time, and it's like, what's all this? What's going on? Sorry.
Yeah, no, totally. And like the same with The Dark Knight Rises. Like, yeah, you get the little Gordon speech, but then it goes into, you know, the Bane plane sequence, which is like one of the most exhilarating things he's ever crafted. Dark Knight, you get the bank. I mean, we could go on. I think the reason that this took a little bit for me to process or at least wrap my head around is because he always starts his movies with, you know, we're big Bond fans, with a Bond-esque pre-title sequence that kind of gets you into the feeling of the movie, grips your attention, and then like takes you on this journey. So the you know, jumping in medias res is a little less like disorienting. He does not do that here, which I think is actually one of the riskiest things he's probably ever done in his career, is taking that style and then trying to, you know, move you around throughout the narrative as best he can. I think with Oppenheimer, it's a little bit, it works a bit more because there is such an intense focus and there's such an intense existential dread placed on Cillian Murphy's character. And like, yeah, we kind of just jump into the proceedings of his life, but there's room to breathe, I think, in the beginning of that film that really just like, it gets you, I don't know, it allows you to inhabit his headspace and his worldview and how he sees things before it kind of like takes you through him in school and whatnot. So yeah, this was, I don't think I've ever, for as much as he's opened films like this, he's never really opened a film like that. And I think that's what took a little bit of getting used to.
Yeah, but they do quite quickly establish all of the rules and stuff. For example, they quickly say Odysseus is gone, his house is full of suitors trying to marry Penelope, and he's been gone like, I think 20 years roughly, because they do say the Trojan War was 10 years ago and it's been 8 years since then, but they also say the dog's 20 years old, so there's some discrepancies in the time there. But they quickly set that up, and they also set up Zeus's law and how there's this thing where basically if a stranger enters your home, you have to show them kindness because they could be a god. And it just kind of, civilization is built on the idea of being kind to strangers, because back in the day, you could just go out into the world and you could run into the wrong crowd and
Yeah,
there would be
yeah,
trouble. So the all of society is built on people treating others how they would be treated, which is quite a strong through line. And it's also something that Odysseus breaks by, getting into Troy. They
yeah,
send that gift in and they're in someone else's home, quote unquote home, and they basically fuck the place up. And that's kind of what the Sudas are doing to his home. So there is some karma there.
hmm
And it just kind of sets up the stakes and how, Odysseus is sort of trying to regain his honor and live with the guilt and everything that he's been through, and how vile that his men were, which we
yeah,
do see. They're willing to sacrifice Sinon to make this thing look believable.
yeah.
And throughout the film, there is a lot of Odysseus choosing to sacrifice his own men to get past things. And we even have like a literal trolley scene where we've got the whirlpool and then a monster. And he's told all this beforehand, and he still chooses to sacrifice his men and go that way, even though
Yeah.
he could. I don't know. There was another way to potentially approach that and just avoid it altogether.
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of the interesting thing about him. That's what makes him kind of like an Oppenheimer like protagonist. Or there actually I found a lot of overlap between him and Cobb from Inception as well, just sort of like the withholding of information, but also like kind of like imprisoning himself in this reality.
Yeah.
And whatnot because of the guilt, the intense guilt that he feels. But yeah, I think it's
Well, he just wants to get home. Really, he just wants to get
right,
home. And
right.
he could easily have stayed at places, but they're like, "Well, you'll have to sacrifice your men if you want to get home, and they will all die at some point." He's still like, "Oh well, I guess that's the cost of me getting home."
Yeah. But it's interesting because it's like he still tries to save them. I mean, I think there is this interesting, and this is the case in a lot of Nolan films, this idea of like, your like agency versus destiny or fate and whatever. It's like, can you actually control these things that are destined to be? If time is, linear and what's happened has happened, do your actions really matter? And whatnot. And like in the case of Odysseus, I mean, he still kind of like clings to the idea that he is going to try and act, even if like he knows his men and he knows what they're going to do in a given scenario. I mean, you see him try different tactics where it's like, okay, I'm going to try lying to them, make them believe that they're going to be okay, and then we'll see what happens from there. Then they get mad at him, and then he's like, all right, well, I'll just tell him the truth. I'll be like, all right, listen, you're going to die. Don't do this, and you will live. And then they defy him anyways. So there is this kind of just like this inevitability for, humanity's capacity for self-destruction that I found really profound. And also how that ties into the idea of just like godhood and us being our own gods. I think one of the reasons that Odysseus goes on this journey that he does is because he's sick of following Agamemnon. And it's like, you followed him in the battle, you followed him and you allowed him to, have this horrible victory over Troy. Why is it the moment that you need to return home and the moment that you probably should just follow him back because at this point you're just trying to go home? Why is that the moment that you decide to defy him and then put everyone else at risk? There's a defiance on his part there that I think is just birthed out of intense guilt for sure, and like needing to atone for everything, but also like he doesn't really know why he's defying his god, and his god being Agamemnon, other than just like, I'm mad at the way that you're doing things, so I'm just gonna recklessly do something else. And then you see that trickle down to his men, where his men get fed up with Odysseus because he's doing things and they look to him. They kind of abdicate their agency and their responsibility to him. And Odysseus is just a man and he's making decisions, and sometimes they're the right decisions, sometimes they're not so great, but he's trying to make the best decisions possible. And then his men get sick of it, and the one time when they're like, no, we don't want you making decisions, they go to Circe's house and they make a terrible decision, and they basically could have died in that instance, but Odysseus came in and saved them. So there is this, I don't know, this interesting relationship between people who are like, they claim to be devoted followers or whatever, but they don't actually want to sit with the challenges of being a devoted follower and not quite understanding your own faith or whatever. I just, and then just recklessly lashing out because they feel because they're just mad, they're not. Anyways, I'm kind of like going down a rabbit hole here, but like that whole thing I found like super impactful about the film.
Yeah, I think there's definitely this idea of defying people and entities. And, Odysseus defies the gods, his men defy him. Agamemnon's wife defies him because she kills him because he was trying to appease the gods by sacrificing their daughter. And there's lots of things like that throughout. And I think there's so much structure to it that we're probably not even going to really scratch the surface on here. But even the suitors are kind of defying the gods by ignoring Zeus's law.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, it's very much about duty and following things. And Odysseus and Penelope have a really touching goodbye where they kind of lay in the bed and, he's got his son in front of him, but Agamemnon calls towards him, who is just aura farming throughout the whole movie.
He really is.
Benny Safdie, when he was speaking, it just didn't sit with me because I imagined him, they held off on his voice for so long, and I was imagining him having like a Odysseus, you must like that sort of voice, like a deep voice. And he was just kind of like, I got home and my wife, she stabbed me right in the throat, y'all. What was that about? But good. As far as costume design goes, I thought it was excellent when they actually opened the doors to Troy and he's just standing there, just letting people run past him. It's like a fucking Darth Vader or something.
No, literally, I was gonna say I saw someone compare it to Darth Vader. It's like it is literally it's the Darth Vader scene.
Rogue One,
yeah, right. It is the Rogue One scene. No, it's so effective. I love that. I love that they don't have him speak until he's in Hades, and then you hear him speak, and you're kind of just like taken off guard by it. You're like, oh. Yeah, he's just a man. Like he's just a guy.
Yeah. I suppose that's a good read on it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But yeah, I did quite like seeing Odysseus just at home. And there was the puppy scene where, mate, I tell you, John Leguizamo, when he threw that first puppy over the cliff, I was like, what the, mate, I hope you still get fucked up for that. He does go blind. He does go through a lot. But yeah, Odysseus takes the second puppy, August, and then he sets out on gives a heartfelt goodbye. They talk about maybe going into exile and sailing away one day and just living their life, which does come full circle at the end. Yeah. But Odysseus also makes her promise. I mean, I'm going from memory here, but makes her promise to remarry or something. It's something where it's like, you must remarry or something. And she gives him the Athena totem as well to carry with him, which is kind of, symbolic of her love, his connection to home, Athena in general, who follows him throughout the movie. And it's kind of this one tie that he carries with him throughout, very close to him. That is also in that watch box as well. I saw that. That's going out
We're gonna have to do like we're gonna have to do a whole unboxing and everything for that when that comes in. We'll just we'll open it up and no. But I loved that the Athena pin was basically just like a wedding band. I mean, the way it was interpreted was just sort of like her giving that to him and like her being. I mean, that whole scene where I can't remember who says it, if it was her or him, but the idea of like love being like torturous and painful at times, and like really testing like your devotion to one another, and knowing that it's not going to be a one-way street, like a thing that you can constantly like take from. You're gonna have to give some of yourself in order for this thing to be what you want it to be. And you see Penelope go through all that pain throughout the course of the film, which I think is so profoundly acted by Anne Hathaway. I think she does an incredible job with those moments and the simmering frustration and rage just bubbling underneath the surface. She's so good. She's so good in the movie. But and then the way that love kind of like ties back into like the spirituality aspect of it, where people are only having like a one-way relationship with the gods. They're acting in ways that are antithetical to their beliefs, and yet they'll kind of like invoke the god's name when it suits them. And so that's this Nolan guy, he knows how to connect ideas really well,
Yeah. So, I mean, Tom Holland heads out, or Telemachus, he heads out alongside Ryan Hurst, who I have just seen today is no longer attached to God of War. Apparently he's had
awful, right? That's
a major injury, and they've decided to recast rather than waiting for him to get better. I don't know what the hell is going on there, but I remember like watching that last night and thinking, oh, this is like God of War and he's killing it. So I don't know if they're going to watch that and then maybe go, oh, well, we'll give him a bit more time. But he heads off to Menelaus. and he's instantly welcoming in. You kind of see Zeus's law, where he's brought up to see the king himself, and he also introduces Helen of Troy. He's like, the face girl launched 1,000 ships, more like 500 now, and she's all cut up. And she kind of represents the cost of war, I think, and time, and how it's ravaged everything. And she also is someone who the war was declared to go and get her, but it clearly was for other reasons. It wasn't. It's like, we're going to go invade the Middle East because Saddam Hussein is bad or something, and really they want the oil. That's sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the classic case of literally. I mean, it's kind of what I was just saying, where it's like people invoking these very like emotional, like personal ideas, whether it's like love or faith or whatever, in the name of something horrific, where they have ulterior motives, but they kind of just want to, abdicate their own responsibility. In the matter. So I thought that was a really
allegedly
good way.
Get the oil. Yeah,
allegedly. It's not alleged.
Yeah. But it's quite a good scene, and that kind of takes us back to Troy, and we see them inside the Trojan horse, which I've never thought about how grueling that would be, but they were inside of it, pissing and shitting. The tide was coming in, they were drowning. It was just a horrendous place to be. And they hadn't even started the mission at that point. And then we see it getting dragged in slowly, and then they're sticking swords through it to check if people are in, and there's people in the crowd shouting like, burn them and stuff. But eventually they go, no, mate, this is a nice horse. It's like if you see like a nice couch at like a dump or something, and you're like, we'll pick up the couch, we're taking that home, and there's people hiding inside of it to rob you. So they put that inside, and then eventually the Trojans, Odysseus's men come out, and they then open up the doors for Agamemnon's forces to come in. And we don't get the full sacking of Troy here yet, but it's quite a thrilling scene.
Yeah.
And I was really just feeling like almost, I don't know, an overwhelming sense of like, oh shit, it's about to kick off, and it does. But when they take it further in the film, it really takes it up a notch. But this is such a good scene as well. Yeah,
I think the distinction is like, and it is perfect because it's when you consider like who is telling the story. Menelaus is telling it, and of course that entire sequence is like thrilling on the edge of your seat, just like in completely like just locked into the intensity of what's going on. There's the thrill of battle that you're witnessing that I think Nolan really channels there. And then when Odysseus tells it, it's a bit more horrific. It's a bit more harrowing. You're seeing things that perhaps the other version of the story told is omitting, and that you feel the weight of what that Trojan horse was. It was not just this like, really incredible, brilliant military victory. There was like a cost that came with that, and the way that those play, they're in conversation with one another based on the person telling the story, I thought was brilliant. I actually wanted to know if you got like Dunkirk vibes when they were like stuck in the horse.
Yeah, the beach. Yeah,
with the beach and everything.
As well, when they're stuck there for 10 years and
they're
trying to think about how to get inside. Yeah.
Definitely. I was like, oh, okay, I see you, Nolan. Yeah, I see you circling back to these.
Yeah, Dunkirk has the boat scene as well, where they kind of try and sail out, and people start shooting at it, and there's water coming in and stuff, and it's kind of like, oh, can we keep going? Yeah, definitely. I think I think it was a really well done scene. Yeah, but basically they take Troy. They go do they go archering at this point? Menelaus and Telemachus, and they kind of talk about things, and then it's Telemachus basically learning what his dad was actually like, which brings him to tears, and he's not experienced him, and he's hearing him through someone who really knew him. And sort of seeing what he's like. But then after that, we then see what happened after the war when they decide to return home, and everyone's like packing up, ready to sail home, and they're like, oh, Agamemnon's going that way. We're not going to go that way, mate. We've got we can just go do what we want for a bit, but I'm not following the boss because he's probably keeping an eye on everyone. But yeah, they all head home. Or they think they do, and we learn that they've kind of, throughout the film, we discover they've been up to no good and kind of landing on places and sacking them. And there is one village that they go to, a coastal village, where all the villagers flee, and they're like, do you not know Zeus's law? You're supposed to treat us well. But it's like, they would have came in and killed them anyway.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's off camera, but I think the guy they have hostage, one of the guys spins the knife almost as if he's going to kill him, and then we kind of
Yeah. Oh, that's
don't see it.
interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. I'll have to like just kind of check and see that from what like when I go back to do my rewatch. But I don't know if you got this, but to me, and I mean this is definitely like in conversation with Oppenheimer, like post atomic bomb drop and everything like that. But to me, that sequence was giving like big Vietnam War energy, where it's like, no, we're the good guys. Yeah. We're like coming in here, but like we're kind of like
Come
burning these.
You.
Right, yeah, we've come to liberate you, but it's like, okay, you're burning down villages, you're stealing their food, you're terrorizing the people. Are you really the good guys? And the way that was shot and the imagery with it, I don't know. To me, it gave Vietnam War vibes, but that also could just be me projecting something that I was thinking about or whatever in that instance.
To be fair, though, Vietnam, I'm sure, is a lot more talked about and discussed in America, whereas it's not really part of our history curriculum. It's just not. It's like the Civil War and Independence Day and stuff. We don't really learn that in school over here at all. Yeah. So all of our knowledge from it is normally from speaking to Americans, which when I was growing up, I didn't, we didn't have mobile phones and we didn't have the internet, and it wasn't like I couldn't just text an American straight away and be like, "Hey mate, what's all this stuff about the tea you've been dumping into the harbor? What's that about?" So we didn't really learn that stuff in school, and so Independence Day and things like that, and Vietnam. It's going to sound so ignorant, but I learned most of the stuff I know about Vietnam through Vietnam movies. So
that's
Rambo,
fair. Yeah.
Platoon, Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Apocalypse Now. Whereas I'm sure you guys probably study it a lot more than we do.
Yeah.
So because of that, my mind just doesn't default to instantly like seeing, soldiers burning a village, being like, that's a Vietnam thing.
Oh no, for sure. I think part of that was like me thinking like, okay, this is like post Oppenheimer, post atomic bomb. If you're thinking of like America as this civilization, okay, what was the things that they tried to do to kind of like control their own fate? But to your point, it is funny because it's like, for as much, not to get too much off on the tangent, but like for as much as we are aware of the Vietnam War, I still think that it's an area that we don't really touch as much as we should, because it's like we fucked up in that instance. And so we're never really, it's one of those things where it's like, you want to get the fullest insight into everything, you got to do your own research on it. So it's,
Yeah. But I noticed that quite a lot with things like House of the Dragon, where I'll clearly see allusions to Tudor stuff and like Henry VIII and the Middle Ages and stuff that we learn. And I noticed that a lot of American breakdowners don't pick up on it because it's not something I think you guys would have learned, whereas for us it's like drilled into our heads when Queen Elizabeth, stuff like that, and Henry VIII, that's all middle school is just all I learned.
That's cool. I love that. I love that kind of just like it's cool.
But the guys are just going about, messing about. They land on a place, see some sheep. They're like, we're going to have them. They go straight into the cave. Like, this guy's got cheese. He's got loads of cheese. These cheese sacks are pretty big, actually. Bit strange, that. And then we have just them hearing something, turning around, and just a hand just comes in. And then, the boulder goes up, and it just becomes a horror show where there's something in the darkness. You can't quite see it. And I love the Cyclops design in this film, where it's kind of, when he's eating, his face is kind of, because his head's tilted, it kind of, you can see how it would look normally, but then he puts it up and it's like all twisted and disfigured. I know the Cyclops in the original poem talks a lot more, and they kind of talk back and forth. Dialogue that they have in the poem is quite funny, and it shows how witty that Odysseus is. But I do like that they kind of keep the Cyclops as something that just won't speak to them, and they touch upon how, you wouldn't speak to an ant, and it's just kind of this weird abstract thing that they're trapped in with, and they're like, do we kill it? Even the fact it's going to sleep around them is like, it clearly doesn't care, and it just views them as food rather than seeing them as something that could stand up to it. But just the score at this point as well, and the way they use music and darkness, and I thought it really came together in this moment, and it sort of becomes a puzzle. Odysseus even gets out and decides to go back in because he wants to help his men navigate this threat, and it sort of becomes like a sort of, how do I get everyone out and kind of figure out how to beat this thing? And that's to the point that he even has to boast almost upon escaping by shooting it.
Well, yeah. I mean, you mentioned like people taking issue with the fact that he doesn't engage in like a verbal, exchange with the guy. He's not exercising his intellect or lording his intellect over this Cyclops. But Nolan still keeps like the core essence of that, which is that Odysseus is beating down on a creature that is like, simple. He's a farmer, right? He's just kind of doing his thing. And Odysseus is like using it as an opportunity to like exercise some of his guilt and whatever. He's like, oh, I'm going to save my men. It's like, fuck you, you're a monster, or whatever. And so the last thing that he does to kind of do that is to shoot him. He's like helpless. They've already escaped. What point is there to shoot him other than for his own hubris, which is similar to, what he does in the poem with the verbal exchange. It's just, he's not speaking to him. He's acting, which feels more in line with the way Nolan approaches this.
Yeah, and it
story.
works for a movie, and it does. The Cyclops gets really annoyed and chases after them. And had Odysseus not done that, they probably would have got away scot-free. I would have probably stayed on the boat this whole trip. I'll just say that, because I would have stayed on the boat the whole time and waited there. And they see that definitely in the next place, which is the Lystrygonians.
Oh, the Lystrygonians, yeah.
Lystrygonians, thank you. So yeah, they arrive on the shore. I knew straight away as soon as I seen like the back of the person hunched down, I was like, oh, this is going to be a kid who's a giant. And the kid just stands up and starts laughing at them. Yeah. And then they're just kind of like, what? And then screams. And then just that army must have been just sat waiting for someone to show up, because they just start walking towards them. All hell breaks loose. And I like how it flips the positions on these conquerors and these invaders who've basically been going anywhere they wanted, taking what they liked, and now they've hit a force that is just overwhelms them and completely outmatches them.
Yeah, I mean, to a similar sense, the same thing that happens with the Cyclops. Like every island they go to, they are confronted with someone who is physically bigger than them, that they cannot, like they were able to, kind of work their way past the Cyclops because he's got one eye, and like, they can just kind of navigate through and take advantage of like his one eye. But like with these guys, I mean, it's a literal army of giants. It's like, what are you going to do against this? And these people clearly do not believe in the same things that you do. Therefore, like they're not going to, like you coming in being like, hey, give me a meal, like put me up, man. Like I deserve it. It's like, no, they don't, like, fuck you. We don't we don't want you. This is, and it's the world that they've created. So like, of course they're going to be hostile towards them.
Kind of like going back to Rambo. Is it John Rambo? What's the fourth one called? When it's like the Christian missionaries, and they're like, we're going into a Burma war zone and we're going to show them Christianity and be nice to them, and then they show up and they're like getting them to run across minefields and stuff, and Rambo's like, don't fucking go there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of like, don't expect people to initially like assimilate to you straight away and to show up and be instantly welcomed in.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a flaw in Odysseus as well, because he's obviously lived by that law, and we see what's happened to his home, and it is kind of maybe putting a guard up. I don't know. But they then go to on the sea. They kind of start blaming Odysseus for getting the gods to curse them by harming the Cyclops after they'd already beaten it, and they feel like the gods are kind of punishing him for his pride, and that definitely comes to a point on Circe's Island, which is just kind of down the coast. Like, I would have sailed a bit further, to be honest. I do wonder if there was something in between that they edited out to get it down to that runtime for IMAX. But it seems like they the giants are all like rocking everyone else's ship and destroying the rest of the crews, and they just manage to get away. And then they sail like 2 minutes down the road, and they're like, oh, there's a house there.
Yeah,
that looks good.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But yeah, they land on Circe's Island, and they kind of start seeing strange animals about, like lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! But they're also like, look, Odysseus, we're gonna go do this, mate. If you want it to be a mutiny, it will be, but you just chill out. And he's like, well, least I can do is go get some food. So he goes off and goes hunting. Kind of sees a deer. He's very sportsman-like. He makes the bow noise to warn the prey, and then chases it. And they go into Circe's house, and kind of, this is where I felt like they just edited it down a bit too much, where it wasn't really sitting with certain moments in their initial meeting, where it was like, yeah, sure, come in, sit down, have some food. That, like, straight in, there wasn't any kind of build up or questioning. It was just kind of going straight into it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think it was. I think the cool. Yeah, what's cool about it is you're contrasting how Odysseus kind of navigates the world and why he's like as skilled as he is, because he's got these worldly sharp eyes, and he's used to kind of like thinking on his own, and so he's like viewing things and he's able to see that stuff is out of place. Whereas the men are just kind of like, they're used to being blind followers, so they're going to go in and they're going to just like, like believe in Xenia and in Zeus's law and believe that they are going to be like treated hospitably, even though they have not done that to other people, even though people like them have caused someone like Circe to be the person that she is. And so, yeah, it's like Odysseus is like clearly aware of the fact that like they're doing not great things and that this is probably going to have effects on their journey. And then, yeah, the men is like that you're incapable without someone who can perceive the world the way Odysseus can.
Yeah, so she gets them to chow down on stuff. I love the body horror stuff in this where she just kind of starts rubbing them and their noses come out because it's all practical. It reminded me a lot of American Werewolf in London and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where it's very much in camera, the actors physically doing it. It's makeup, the ears, even just the ear changing wasn't like an amazing effect, and you could see how they did it where she kind of rubbed it, and obviously they swapped the ear around and stuff, but it's just nice seeing something that isn't CGI that they're actually trying to do practically, and that was kind of seen throughout the scene, and they're squealing away and stuff, and then you've got Odysseus discovering the deer at this point as well. He's tracking it, he shoots it a couple of times, chases it, and then discovers a naked man, and then the penny drops. It's these guys are becoming pigs, and then he shows up to the house and there's loads of pigs and they're banging on the door and stuff and trying to get him to not eat the food, and it's clear he's figured things out, and they just have a nice back and forth, and Circe, from her point of view, is doing the right thing, because to her these men were going to come in and just take what they wanted. It wouldn't be just the food. It would be more than that. And she's turning them into pigs. Does she say that she doesn't even choose what they become? They kind of guide themselves to that? That's kind of my assumption of it. She basically is like, well, your men are pigs. Like I'm just going to, we're going to just take the disguises away. And it's like, this is who they are. They're animals. Yeah, I love that line where she's changing them back and says to go back to your disguise.
Yeah, that was a good line. Yeah, it was a great line. Yeah. No, for sure. I think it is like, they come in kind of expecting all these things, and then we'll just kind of, like the suitors, just continue to take and take. And of course, like, she has every right to be afraid, given like stuff that she's kind of experienced in this new world that exists of people coming into your home and like taking advantage of you. So like, of course, it's like they can say like, oh, we weren't going to do any of that. But is that true? It's like, are you just saying that because you kind of got caught, or is it actually how you would have behaved?
Yeah, I mean, I think the cattle later on show that when push comes to shove, even if they have a warning, they're still like, we'll still just do it anyway, whatever. Fuck the gods.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is obviously like her way of life, and she's not killing the people, she's just turning them into animals. And even her sister, which is a bird, she says like, oh, we get along better this way. Yeah. It's clear that she's not evil.
Yeah,
the shades of grey to it.
Yeah, for sure. I think she is, I wouldn't say she's like strictly evil, but like she's it is like, it's wrong, but also at the same time, what is wrong in this world? It's like she's not killing them. She's just kind of like turning them into animals, and she's turning them into people turning them into animals that they already were kind of like representative of in real life. So in her mind, at least, it's like, am I really doing anything different, or am I just exposing the id of these people,
Well, yeah, and I think from a certain point of view, Circe is the hero of her story, and if these guys are like the suitors are the bad guys. Yeah. And, she's in her home, and there is a version of this story where she's just milling about her farm, just being nice and chill, and these people show up, these soldiers show up to take over, and there's kind of her fighting back and doing what she can to not even kill them, just turn them into pigs. Well, she directs... Sorry, go ahead.
No, what I was going to say is like, even down to the fact where it's like, she was not going to kill the pigs, but she was like, hey, Odysseus, pick a hog. You can kill him.
Dinner.
Yeah, right. It's like, that'll be your dinner right there. She's like, again, she's kind of like, she did this thing, but she's abdicating her responsibility of being like, well, if you want to eat, you're gonna have to kill one of your men. And it's like, which is basically what he's been doing this whole time. It's just in a more like literal sense, I guess, there.
Yeah, like someone dies every place they go to on his road home.
Yeah, exactly.
And that takes us to the land of the dead, Hades, where they just sail to. And this is, it's quite a haunting scene. It's not over the top effects wise. It's just people covered in black sand crawling out the ground.
Yeah.
But the way they move them, and kind of Agamemnon floats in, and
right.
Like
it's just
Morticia Adams sort of thing.
Yeah, right.
And then you've got Sinan coming up. And this is kind of where we learn more about Sinan and Antinius. I had to re-record my breakdown with his name twice because I kept second guessing how his name was.
Yeah,
Antinius. So we basically find out that there'd been a lottery for people to go to Troy, and Sinan had taken his place, and under the promise of being like there'd be protection and I'd look after your family and stuff like that. I did love as well how throughout the movie Robert Pattinson's constantly like, I tried to volunteer to go to Troy. I was going straight there. I wanted to go the whole time. He just constantly tries to make himself look like he's a hero, and even when he's chucking the dog out and getting it dumped on a pile of dump.
Yeah, right.
He's basically doing it like, we must treat this dog well. Yes, take him outside, give him some air.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a big reveal with Sinan, and it's also in this moment that we learn that Odysseus sacrificed him to get into Troy.
Yeah.
And it just shows again that idea of sacrifice and using people as a resource and them being pawns in a game rather than necessarily having their best interests at heart and being what a leader is normally seen as.
Yeah, and I think it's also, I think what's interesting about that is because of the person that Sinan was, and the loyalty and devotion, and because they were someone who was genuinely there, they were fighting for the right reasons. I think had Robert Pattinson, Antinius gone to Troy, he would have gone for glory. He would have gone for himself. He would have gone to be a martyr or whatever. He wouldn't have gone for the right reasons, which is why Sinan is the one who ultimately goes. But I think the tragedy of that moment is like Odysseus realizing, like, because of the person Sinan was, if you had just told them, they would have just done it anyways. And he's like, well, I was with you the whole time. Like, I was with you behind the thing. He's like, what? Yeah. What comfort does that bring me when I can't even see you, when I don't know you're there? It's like, if you had just told me, then I would have been able to make peace with this whole thing, and I still would have done it because of the virtues that live within me. And I think that's a moment for Odysseus where he recognizes, like, I don't always need to, like, I know the people who are loyal and the people who aren't, and who are just like doing this for optics. And perhaps I should trust my own instincts and be honest with people, including myself, about these things. So that was a really, really profound moment for sure.
Yeah, and I like the way that Agamemnon is kind of telling him not to go home, almost, because he talks about what happened when he got home. And we've kind of learned throughout the movie that he'd sacrificed his daughter for the gods to get the winds to be a certain way or something along those lines. I'm sorry if I keep getting minor details wrong. I did see it last night and it's a lot to kind of take in, but it was something about sacrificing to get, like, so they could sail to Troy.
Yeah.
And his wife's been waiting for him. She bathes him, combs his hair, makes him look all fancy, and then stabs him in the throat because he killed their daughter. And I love that reveal as well. And it kind of does say that when you get home, don't expect everything to just go smoothly and for it to all be like just showing up at the door. And I think just that with Sinan and then the stuff with Agamemnon, it works really well. Now, the let's go moment was a massive point of contention when the trailer first dropped. And I kind of want to use this as a moment to segue into the dialogue for the film. Yeah. Now, the let's go bit in context, I thought worked really well because it was the army of the dead chasing them. And he's not saying like, let's fucking go. He's saying it like, let's go and get out of here. Yeah. It's not like, let's go. So he's saying to his men, let's go and get to the boat and leave. Not how it was interpreted at the time. Right. But saying that, the dialogue, it did take me a while to gel with. And I don't know if it's because I'm British. I don't know if it's because fantasy is always kind of presented with a British accent. Yeah. There was some bit, and I don't know if it's because Tom Holland and Robert Pattinson are British as well. I can hear that transatlantic accent that they put on.
Yeah.
It's just kind of the very generic accent that English actors do, and Benedict Cumberbatch does it, and Andrew Garfield does it, where it's all kind of the same accent, but it's not specific to a certain region of New York, or not New York, of America. So
right.
sounds like kind of generic New York.
Yeah, it's like an it's like America's attempt at like an elevated, elegant, an elegant kind of accent. My favorite part is towards the end of the film when Robert Pattinson is like, "Somebody get those beggars out of here." He like sounds like an old movie star. So it's like the best. It's like that and like the feast is done or over or whatever. Those are the two moments where I'm like, oh, this is like a movie. This feels like an old movie.
Yeah.
But I didn't mind the anachronistic approach to the language as much because I
did get into it and it was fine after a certain point. It was
just well, I think it's kind of just indicative of like Nolan's whole view of the story, right? Like, I mean, we often, I think he's made this point in several interviews, which I thought was really brilliant, but he's talked about how, a lot of our perception of like this period of time is actually kind of colored in by like the Renaissance or stuff like that, which was filtered through the prism of like that time period. And so like even what we think of as being like ancient Greece or whatever isn't really what it is. And so like even down to the fact like with like a lot of these old historical epics or these old biblical epics, I mean, you brought up the British accent thing. It's like we've kind of just accepted that the British accent, like it for whatever reason, just feels like, oh, that's like the way that these movies should sound. But it's like that's not even really even remotely close to like how they would have actually spoke or whatnot. So I like his approach at making it a bit more contemporary, a bit more easily accessible to people to understand this like 3,000-year-old text. And the timelessness of the essence of the story. Yeah, so like I don't know, like the people who are nitpicking about historical accuracy, like when it comes down to like dialogue and stuff like that, it's like you're thinking of something that doesn't even exist. You're just like it's just the way that things have been done, in epics in the 20th century. That's not necessarily true of like it's not the only way you could tell these stories, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I've seen loads of things where it's like even if you went back to 1300 England, you wouldn't understand it at all because if you watch The Witch by Robert Eggers, he really tries to nail down the language and style of talking.
Yeah.
And you watch parts of that and you think, I've got no fucking idea what these guys are saying. And you can go even further back than that to like 1066 and stuff before, like around the Battle of Hastings. And the dialect and stuff we use. Like if you read Shakespeare, a lot of that stuff you're like, well, I've got no fucking idea what any of this means. Going back thousands and thousands of years, it wouldn't be you wouldn't have understood it anyway, even if they were speaking English, because it's just so off the wall. But yeah, this is kind of lays out, it's at this point that the guy says basically, look mate, you're going to sail past this thing, you're going to there's going to be a whirlpool, you've got Scylla, you're going to have to decide, do we destroy the ship or do we lose 6 men? And Odysseus is very aware of what this cost is going to be, and he does kind of play where it's like, we've got maybe steer towards there, but if we can also like bend around the whirlpool and go that way and stuff. And yeah, it's just a great, and I love when they kind of make it past the whirlpool and then there's a moment of just like, oh, we did, and then Scylla comes down, grabs the guy and pulls him up. Who is the guy from Tenet? I think he's from the start of Tenet. He's one of
the Russian guys.
Yeah. I recognized him. I saw that guy.
Yeah.
So that's a good moment.
I do love that. What did you think of the Scylla design? I thought making
didn't like it.
You didn't?
Nah.
I get it because it is like it's not very striking, but I think within the the realism of the world he's created, making it just like this really large barnacle that basically grabs people and stuff. I mean, that's like it's kind of like how those things eat, right? Like that's how barnacles like kind of like operate. Am I right? Like I don't know, maybe I'm making that up in my head. Maybe I'm the idiot here, but like I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's just a thing that's bigger than you eating you. So yeah, I don't know, but I get it because that for a lot of people that's like we want to see this whole sequence. You want it to be like the Kraken scene from Pirates of the Caribbean, and it's not. And so I can understand some disappointment there.
Kind of reminded me of Rocky from Project Hail Mary.
Yeah, a little bit.
Monster.
Yeah,
Yeah, kind of like that. So yeah, they kind of ride on through that, and then they get to the cattle of Helios. Oh, sorry, the Sirens next, which is all putting wax in their ears and just kind of sailing past it, and Odysseus subjecting himself to it. And even that guy's like pulling wax out of his ear. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, mate? You are defying advice there by doing that shit.
Yeah.
I like the way the Sirens are shot as well, where they're sort of just people sitting on a rock, and it's like you can see that they're women and stuff and all sexy and that.
Yeah.
But there's not like a shot on the rocks themselves. It's just kind of something off in the distance that you kind of are drawn towards and want to see, much like the sailors.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the way he depicts the Sirens, very effective. That whole sequence actually I thought was really, really powerful. Just him kind of being like told told through the song of just like all the promises he failed to keep is basically the punctuation point on that whole monologue that he gives right there. And I was like, yeah, that's like kind of the truth that he needs to hear, and him kind of coming to terms with his own decisions. I mean, it is interesting that happens right before the Scylla stuff, because it is almost like him preemptively. It's like a bit of self-flagellation before he goes and like sacrifices these men. He's like, I have to like kind of, I don't know, like hurt myself a little bit in order for this to be okay. Yeah.
Yeah. They kind of offer surrender, and there's a part of him that wants to stop fighting. And he just doesn't want the guilt. He doesn't want to try anymore. He thinks about just maybe ending it all there, and just if he'll even return home and be the man that he was. And then that kind of takes us to the sacred cattle of Helios, which is not a massive scene. It's just them kind of sitting about and seeing the cows and talking about how they tried to outlast the hunger and live there, knowing full well what the warning was. But I suppose we have these things in real life as well, where, if you're a religious person, you've got the 10 Commandments. If you're a Christian, and it kind of lays out, don't do these things. And most of the stuff on there you might have done. I'm just saying.
Oh, no, straight up.
Not the murdering stuff. We've all been told, like, there's certain rules you just don't break, and we still end up doing some of them. And I can see on that island, once you hit a point of being so hungry, you just like, we'll just have one. We'll just eat the one.
Yeah. No, it is. I love the line. I mean, it's kind of funny when he says it, but it's also true. It's like you think, because you think the gods wouldn't notice if you ate quietly. Like it was just the way he delivers it is really good, but it's true. It's like you think that like the way the gods operate is like they don't abide by like human conventions. Like they're all seeing, they're all like, they will know if you've done something or not done something. And the fact that these people think that they can just like hide from them, if they can like break their convictions, their beliefs and whatever, it's gonna come back to bite you in the ass. I think that is that whole idea in the way, like that idea of faith and of like performative faith versus like actually being a true believer and kind of like sticking to your guns, like that's something I think is at the core of this. And the men acting the way that they do, I think really exposes that they're kind of lost,
Yeah, and I do like the way that in this movie you don't, other than Athena, you don't really see the gods. It's just kind of like Zeus is a storm, and that's it. And there's throughout the movie there's sound of thunder and stuff, and even when he's a beggar, there's the sound of thunder, and it's like, is that Zeus or not? And they play with that really nicely.
They do.
So they sail because the wind. All of a sudden, once they've eaten the cattle, it's safe to sail back. And this is when the ship gets wrecked, and we got a strobe light warning at the start of the movie.
Holy
I'm guessing
shit,
it was
dude.
for this scene.
Yeah.
Even I was like, mate, I might need to fucking get out of here quick.
I was like, do I have epilepsy? I was like concerned for a second. Like I was like powerful, just light. Like, oh my God. It was a lot.
Yeah. So he sails off on a little bit. He sees his crew going down. I do kind of hope they survived. Who knows what would happen? They might have sailed off and been fine. But he goes to live with Calypso, who's been giving him these lotus leaves or lotus flowers. Sorry, I would have lived there, mate. I would have lived with Charlize Theron and being immortal and lived there for thousands of years, mate. But Odysseus is very much like Jason Bourne. He's got that thing that's calling to him, and he starts remembering things. And he also talks with Athena, who we learn throughout the movie is someone that is kind of connected to Troy. So she's wearing the face of a random woman that was kind of killed in front of him, and it represents the guilt and what he what his war cost and how he should have stuck to Zeus's law. And she's kind of a reminder of that, of how bad this army were, that they just stormed the place and killed loads of innocent people who just so happened to live there, which does kind of tie in with Oppenheimer as well, I think, because obviously, you know, if you drop an atomic bomb, you're not just hitting soldiers. There's gonna be people caught up in that who are innocent.
Oh, sure.
And that was kind of what they unleashed on Troy. It was just everyone was getting slaughtered.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even those targets that they selected to drop the bombs on were like civilian targets. So it's like you were targeting innocent people. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, pretty messed up. And that reveal with Athena, I've kind of jumped ahead there, but that does sort of circle us back around to the suitors who want to eliminate Telemachus, and they send a guy to, I'm going to butcher the guy's name, John Leguizamo. I probably mispronounced that as well. I definitely wasn't getting his character name right.
Sid the Sloth.
Send gods to him. Yeah, so they kill his dogs. Odysseus at this point decided to head home, and he kind of comes across the farm, but they're also going to go assassinate Telemachus as well, who's coming back to Ithaca. So Odysseus learns about this, goes and stops it in the Temple of Athena. They all kind of make a break for it. It's a great moment. And I love Odysseus not being recognized by Telemachus was something that I always wondered, how are they going to handle this? Because it's something that if they ever do Children of Dune, they're going to have a similar problem, because there's a returning character in that who's kind of dressed in robes and people suspect he's a certain person, but he can't out and out do it. Whereas in a book, you can do that easily because you're not showing the character. But in a film, it's quite hard to disguise it. And I thought the way they shot it, where he's sort of always in darkness, it's kind of just his hood up, his beard sort of popping out. That was a really good way to handle it, where you could understand why he just thinks he's a beggar or one of Odysseus' soldiers.
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought that was really, it was testing Telemachus in a sense. I mean, and the poem kind of points to this as well, where it's just like Telemachus genuinely believes in Zeus's law and the core ethos of like treating others as you want to be treated. And so like he shows respect for beggars, and like even if the beggars are like just saying they know of Odysseus or like where he might be just for shelter and whatnot, they're not going to turn them away, right? Like they're still going to, he's still going to bring them in and give them a chance to like speak privately. And it just so happens that one of the, his faith is rewarded by one of those beggars being his father. And I love the scene, the way he's like, they like fight together without knowing that they're like father and son. And then also the way that Damon kind of like escorts him out of like the exploding temple. You want to talk about Jason Bourne? That felt like Jason Bourne, like the whole what was it, like Waterloo Station thing from Bourne Ultimatum, where he's like guiding him through. It was good. It was good.
Yeah, so they get them home. There's like, Telemachus is like, oh, throw a party tonight, throw a big banquet, I'm back, baby. And then they're secretly like, get everyone's fucking weapons out here, get all the armor hidden away, put it upstairs in a cupboard and lock that room, because stuff's going to kick off tonight. And this is because he knows his dad is back, because the dog that's been waiting, I'm going to tear up, the dog's been in a pile of shit waiting for its master to return, and he bends down and strokes it, its tail wags for the last time, and then it dies. And it's held on there. I don't know why you held on, because he just ditched you 20 years ago, but you're bloody good doggo, mate. You're bloody good dog. I guess dogs are the best.
Yeah,
that's
they are.
The moral of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they kind of have what I would describe as just getting you to hate the suitors as much as possible. And they have a moment where Odysseus is going around begging and saying like, there's room in my bowl, and like they're tipping the food out and then spitting in it and throwing a chair off his back and stuff like that.
It's just insane. Just like, God, you guys are fucking monsters. Like, come on.
Assholes.
Yeah.
So, Penelope gets the bow out, and they're all like struggling to string it up. Antinous doesn't even bother doing. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention that Odysseus says that his name's Sinon, and he gives him back the lottery stick, and it's kind of like, where'd you get this from? It's like, fuck it, I know you're a punk ass bitch. That's what I know. So yeah, they have the big moment, and I just thought the way that the whole build up to this was absolutely perfect and spot
fantastic.
On.
Yeah.
Where they have everyone laughing and kind of struggling to do it, and then everyone's had a go, and Antinous won't even try, and then Odysseus is like, I haven't had a go, and everyone's like bursting out laughing, and he fucks it up, and then Penelope starts walking away, and they do it where they integrate the score, so they have the strings, they have two beats, and then he pulls the bow, and that's like the third note, and then shoots it. And then even before the guy can say, "Oh God, that's Jason Bourne," he's shot through the neck and he's dead. Yeah. And it all just kicks off.
Yeah, for real. Oh yeah, and it's just such a incredible massacre. Like it is the thing you've been waiting for this whole time, and it fully delivers. You get all these freaks get their just desserts. Yeah, the way
Rambo again.
Yeah, literally.
Rambo 4 bit again when he gets on the 50 cal and he just starts fucking wasting people.
Yeah, straight up.
You just love seeing it, mate.
Yeah, no,
it's like a massive Rambo 4 fan.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, man, you're a big fan of that movie. No, it's great. I love when he gives Robert Pattinson back his shame, right? Like the thing that he's been kind of parading around and like refusing to acknowledge this whole time and own. He's just like, yeah, well, if you're not going to take it, I'm going to give it to you. And plunges the dagger. It's so good.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, really good. And he was hooking up with Mia Goth as well. What happened to her? That was one of my big things, because I seen her get locked out. She kind of runs about for a bit and then they just don't. Did they show her again, or did I?
No, well, I think the assumption is that Penelope leaves her in there so that she can get slaughtered with the rest of the suitors. And I believe that character in the poem does get slaughtered with the suitors for basically betraying Penelope and everything.
Yeah.
But we don't actually see what happens to her. I'm assuming that, I don't know, maybe one of Odysseus's arrows just found their way into her neck, like similar to, the one guy. Yeah. So, but we don't actually see it.
But Telemachus during this has also been fighting Logan Marshall Green's character. I did like the way where throughout the movie, John Leguizamo's character has been blind and he's constantly being like, "You're too loud, you're too fucking loud." Right. And then he hears him go into the cupboard and locks him in. I thought that was a really good payoff. Would never suspect they'd do something like that, but really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that just fell in really nicely. And having him wanting to prove himself to become the next king.
Yeah.
I think having that was a really good way to do it. And he does kind of get his arse handed to him. And there were points when I was like, "What? Just turn around and stab him, mate. He's on the ground over a table."
Right.
But worked really well, and we just have Matt Damon just tearing shit up. Thunder in the background, the score going wild, so loud, incredible. Loved it.
Yeah.
No notes.
No, for real. I do love how the score echoes the same piece of music that is played during the Trojan horse sequence, but it's like now it's like within Odysseus's own home, and it's like him actually like fighting the thing that he has brought to his own city to Troy and everything like that. It's reverse. It's like him trying to like clean up the mess that he's made a little bit. But I think the great thing about Telemachus is just like in the sense of it being like this coming of age story. At the beginning, his mom's like, "Well, you're just doing all these things. You want to like become the new king of Ithaca and everything, but you don't actually know why you want to do it. You don't actually know, like you're not doing it for the right reasons. You're just doing it because you think it's what you should be doing. It's the noble thing you should be doing." And then throughout the film, he comes to understand what is required of leadership, the cost of leadership, and then upon meeting his father, it finally all comes together. And then he's only able to become the king after he, has his convictions tested. And I thought that was a really, really beautiful way of just like of testing him as a person, and doing the coming of age story that is so intrinsic to that character's arc in the poem.
Yeah, definitely. We've missed out so much, but even now I'm looking at this. I told you this would be a half-hour video, and we're like 7 minutes into it. But yeah, just the speech they have at the window, I think is at the sliding door. Sorry, I think is so good, and it's kind of does the Athena reveal there as well. But it's talking about how much time's passed and if it would even be possible for Odysseus to return. And I think a lot of this movie is about letting go of the past and just looking to the future and trying to make the most of what you have with what you have left. And that's kind of the feeling that I get when they end things and they decide to sail off into the sunset and go off together, having finally gone through this massive journey to see what really matters. And I love the way that for Odysseus had been trying to get home this entire time, but it wasn't about getting home. It was getting back to what his home is, which is Penelope, and sailing off together. And she is his home, and wherever he goes and she goes, that's their home together. And they've got a future ahead of them, and they kind of decide to do that instead of just, grieving the years they've lost and what they've missed out on. It's more kind of optimistic and sailing towards that sun and trying to make the most of it.
Right. There's this idea, there's this like cross-generational handoff, if you will, where it's like the world has been mucked up, and it's like it has changed because of the actions of the older generation. And traditionally what we've seen is like the handing off of generations results in the future generations having to clean up the mess of the older ones. And what Nolan's trying to say at the end of this is like, just as you would if you were a guest in someone else's home, clean up your mess on the way out and leave the world in a, you know, manageable situation so that the future generation could actually like figure their way out, fix the problems, make things a better place. Nolan is smart enough to recognize that there's a cyclical pattern here that we're just kind of, we can't quite shake, but there is like a little like silver lining of optimism in there, which is that, you know, the things we leave behind are the lessons and the stories that we impart onto our children and in these future generations. And if they're listening, if they're receptive to it, they'll be able to interpret them in ways that will make their lives better. And which is what we see with Telemachus and everything. It's like he learned the lessons of his father and is going to then go forward and hopefully make good on like all of that. He'll be a better version of what his father tried to be. And Odysseus and Penelope are able to exit, you know, their prominent role in the spotlight here and just kind of like do their own thing now, but not before, you know, cleaning up their mess and making right, which is the key there. You can't just like leave things, you know, just be like, oh, whatever, we're out of here. No, you gotta make things right before you move on.
Yeah, definitely. And there's like a split second shot. Well, not a split second, but it doesn't end on that shot. It ends with Matt Damon. I think it ends on this, but it's like right near the end. Him back in Troy on the ground, staring up at the Trojan horse, kind of on its side, on fire. What did you make of that shot? I have feelings on it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, because I think the line that accompanies it is like, it's something to the effect of like Matt Damon saying like, it'll be like perhaps time will like forget about all of this. And then you have the Trojan horse burning, and it's a reminder that it's like, well, we don't, well, it's like, yes, we do forget all about it, but we forget the truth of it. We remember the myth of it, and thus we kind of are doomed to repeat the same cycles. So there is this like melancholic kind of ending where it's like Nolan has this like, here's the hopeful thing that we should really like try to do. Here's the reality of what happens. And that's kind of the nature of that final ending, that final shot of the Trojan horse. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just, for me, it's kind of almost like Oppenheimer, where that ends with him thinking about how the atomic bomb has kind of set off all these different events and it's going to lead to the world being destroyed potentially down the line. 100%. And by breaking Zeus's law and people not treating each other like how they want to be treated, it's led to this massive thing that's kind of ruined so many people's lives. And it's kind of almost a warning of the whole thing of like, look, Odysseus could have skipped out on a lot of this and been back home and been grand had he not necessarily broken this law. Yeah, just kind of, that's how I took it.
Yeah.
But it's one of those shots that's open to interpretation. I do really like your take on it too, and kind of how he's like, the stuff will be forgotten. It's like, mate, we're 3,000 years still making movies about it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. No.
Yeah. But thank you so much for joining me. I'm sorry for keeping you for so much longer.
No. This is great. I've wanted to talk about this movie ever since I saw it, and we finally got a nice opportunity to just let it all out, right? You know, it's great.
Yeah. I've just realized I haven't pressed record, but thanks for joining me. And I really appreciate it, mate. If you want to check out Griffin as well, go to Film Speak. It's up to you guys now. You guys leave your thoughts in the comments. I'm sure there's lots of stuff to talk about. I'm going on Twitter every couple of hours, and fucking hell, what a hell site it is. It is over there. But yeah, I'm going to check it now and see what everyone's saying. So leave your comments all below, and thank you again for joining me, Griffin.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Take care, mate.